Welcome back to BrightLearn, your go-to podcast for diving deep into the most pressing issues of our time. Today we're taking a closer look at a topic that has sparked intense debate and divided opinions across the globe: climate change. But we're not just going to scratch the surface, we're going to delve into the heart of the controversy with a critical eye and a curious mind. Our guide on this journey is Patrick Michaels' book, Climate Coup: Global Warming's Invasion of Our Government and Our Lives. This book is a treasure trove of insights, challenging the mainstream narrative and offering a fresh perspective on how climate change alarmism is reshaping our world. Let's start with a bold claim. Global warming alarmism is everywhere. It's in our schools, our policies, our military strategies, and even our courts. Children are being taught that the world is on the brink of disaster, and this message is often delivered without any room for debate or skepticism. Michaels argues that this pervasive alarmism is not just about science, it's about power and control. He points out that the executive branch has increasingly taken the reins on climate policy, often bypassing Congress and imposing regulations that have far-reaching impacts on our daily lives. This shift has been facilitated by the rise of the executive state, a concept that has its roots in the progressive era and was solidified during the New Deal. The executive state is a term that might sound abstract, but it has very real implications. Essentially, it refers to the expansion of the executive power at the expense of legislative and judicial oversight. Michaels explains that this has allowed the president to implement sweeping climate policies without the need for new legislation. For instance, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, has been empowered to regulate carbon dioxide emissions under the Clean Air Act, even though the act was not originally intended to address global climate issues. This move was backed by the Supreme Court's decision in Massachusetts versus EPA, which effectively gave the EPA the authority to regulate greenhouse gases. Michaels argues that this is a clear example of judicial activism, where the courts have overstepped their bounds and forced the executive branch to implement policies that Congress never approved. This shift has significant implications for our constitutional system of checks and balances, as it concentrates power in the hands of unelected bureaucrats. Now let's talk about the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, the organization often cited as the authority on climate science. Michaels and other critics argue that the IPCC has been heavily politicized, with its reports often relying on non-peer-reviewed sources and making exaggerated claims. One of the most infamous examples is the hockey stick graph, which purported to show a dramatic rise in global temperatures over the past century. However, Michaels and others have pointed out that this graph was based on flawed statistical methods and ignored historical data that contradicted its conclusions. The ClimateGate scandal further fueled skepticism about the IPCC's credibility. Leaked emails from climate scientists revealed attempts to manipulate data, suppress dissenting views, and obstruct freedom of information requests. These revelations cast doubt on the transparency and integrity of the scientific process behind the IPCC's reports. Michaels also delves into the economic and social consequences of climate policies. He argues that the push for renewable energy and carbon reduction has led to higher energy costs, job losses, and economic disruption. For example, the American Clean Energy and Security Act, ACES, also known as the Waxman-Markey Bill, was criticized for its potential to cripple industries and burden consumers with higher prices. Michaels uses Spain as a case study to illustrate the pitfalls of green energy policies. The country heavily subsidized solar power, only to see its economy suffer as a result. The subsidies were eventually scaled back, leading to a collapse in the green job market and leaving Spain in a precarious financial position. Trade policies are another area where climate change alarmism has left its mark. Michaels discusses how attempts to impose carbon tariffs on imports from countries with less stringent emissions regulations could backfire. These tariffs could violate World Trade Organization (WTO) rules and provoke retaliation from trading partners, ultimately harming the global economy. Michaels argues that such policies are based on the flawed assumption that carbon leakage, the idea that emissions will simply move to countries with laxer regulations, is a significant problem. In reality, studies have shown that leakage is relatively minor and that trade measures are unlikely to be effective in reducing global emissions. So, where do we go from here? Michaels suggests that a more balanced and evidence-based approach is needed. He advocates for policies that prioritize economic growth and technological innovation, which he believes will ultimately lead to better environmental outcomes. Michaels also calls for a return to constitutional principles with a renewed emphasis on the separation of powers and the role of Congress in shaping climate policy. He argues that this is the only way to ensure that policies are transparent, accountable, and reflective of the diverse interests of the American people. In conclusion, Climate Coup offers a provocative and thought-provoking critique of the global warming narrative. It challenges us to question the assumptions underlying climate policies and to consider the broader implications of the executive state on our democratic institutions. As we navigate the complexities of climate change, it's crucial that we approach the issue with an open mind and a critical eye. We must demand transparency, accountability, and a commitment to scientific integrity. Only then can we hope to find solutions that are both effective and sustainable. Thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope this episode has sparked your curiosity and encouraged you to think more deeply about the issues at stake. Stay tuned for more episodes of BrightLearn, where we continue to explore the topics that matter most.
This has been a BrightLearn video from brightlearn.ai on the book Climate Coup, Global Warming's Invasion of Our Government and Our Lives by Patrick Michaels. Visit brightlearn.ai for more fascinating videos like this one, and visit naturalnews.com for full editorial coverage and breaking news on critical stories that keep you informed and aware of what's really going on.